This be me birthday party adventure. We were halfway across the Atlantic, transporting legitimate cargo from the heart of India. You see, we're not always brutishly piratical. Now, as it was, we'd bartered with the savages, an entire rubber crop in return for not putting fire to their village. 'Twas a most favourable deal, and we'd had the foresight to take out some insurance, lest the heathens be thinking it be not such a fine deal. We kept them in the hold on water and biscuits. Clearly it was better food than their native fare, for they were often sickening. One morning I awoke late, which I ascribe having somewhat hammered the rum, whilst discoursing at length with Stone Cold Steve in the Crow's Nest. Having demonstrated a perilous fondness for the bottle, we'd chained Steve to the mast. Our plan were to cure him with sobriety. 'Twas not a mutual agreement, mind, but I just need a clear pair of eyes on me ship. Now I came on deck to a chorus of "For he's a dastardly rascal" from me beloved crew. From the bunting I realised it were me birthday once more. It fair brought a tear to me eye. Billy No Mates and No Hands Mick had planned a day of drinking, feasting and diverse entertainments. We began with a few tots of rum to see us through till noon, and we brought the heathens out on deck to join the festivities. Their high spirits at the sight of the sun after so many weeks brought joy to our hearts, and their capering were a marvel, considering the manacles about their ankles. 'Twas only later, after the third barrel, that our minds turned to darker pleasures. I was provided with birthday treasures by the lads. Billy gave me a varnished squid containing some liqueur tasting of rancid seaweed. 'Tis no wonder he has no friends. Had we been on land, I'd have sent him home with no cake. 'Twas all rubbish, but since there be no gift shop aboard, 'tis the thought that counts. And then I were somewhat startled by the loud thunk and the familiar rasp of a body dragged across the colkin. But 'twas only Barry the man-girl, hauling a wrapped thing from his cabin. Mentally I prepared myself for smiling politely, like when he procured for me the services of his night-time self, Sharon. I leaves that to the crew, although Mick were grateful for the voucher. But I need not have worried. The lads had been industrious, carving me a rubber woman to while away the long hours in me hammock. It shames me to say it, but I was delighted. 'Twas wondrous, right down to the toes, 4 on one foot, 7 on the other, and she were a snug fit in me arms. And pliable, like a body left too long in salt water. She was a fine consort for a civilised pirate like myself. There was even a holder for me mug and pipe. I named her India, and proceeded to try her out, to the audible horror of the heathens. Now, I'm no fan of screaming savages, and I propose a party game. In no time at all we had 'em bobbing amongst the waves, tempting the sharks with their flailing limbs. My, how we chuckled. There was a sudden cheer as one of the savages vanished underwater. But when the others swiftly disappeared too, the chains left a dangling. We knew not what to think. Looking back now, it seems like that we brought it all upon ourselves, with all the birthday excitement. With the fishing finished, we quaffed away, and then Stone Cold Steve was heard to bellow unintelligibly from the Crow's Nest. We merely drank some more and mocked his teetotal lunacy. But the next we knew, there were a monstrous tentacle lashing the deck, its suckers all puckered up for a fatal kiss. And that were only the first. Before we could hack it with our cutlass and dagger, there were 7 more assailing the grim bastard and her noble crew. The monster octopus took hold of the vessel and hauled its body half out the water. Its horrible beak snapped hungrily as it tossed seamen from the ship and squashed me lads in its slimy coils, tugged me men free from their refuges and flung them about the ship. Those of us still aboard and not unconscious with drink were tucked down to avoid them terrible suckers. I saw a man of his face sucked clean off. Its hideous bulbous noggin hung off the bows with a sorcery eye upon ye brave captain. Mick and me were back to back, me slashing at a tentacle while he beat his stumps upon it. 'Twas not an effective stratagem. The thing had wrapped half its arms around the mainmast, inching closer to poor tethered Stone Cold Steve and pulling us all and over. 'Twas then I felt the first drop of rain and heard thunder rumble towards us. As the sky darkened, signifying doom for us all, the octo-brute waggled the mast back and forth, jerking Steve lasso-like at the end of his chain. Then, a miracle. The clouds farted and struck him with a vast bolt of lightning. The power of the heavens passed through him, the mast, and into that psychotic cephalopod. The lightning lit the big bugger up like a Chinese lantern, and it collapsed into a stinking, steaming heap on the deck, pissing ink all over me ship. Poor Steve were crispy too, of course. It seems he'd finally dried out. Ha ha! I kept expecting to be shocked myself, but the lightning were done and the storm withdrew. You see, stand on our rubbery cargo had saved us all from the storm's spark. Well, them as had not already been eaten, crushed, or otherwise passed on. Sadly, the rubber had melted, and with it our fortune. There seemed but two courses of action before us. Either return to India and renegotiate via the medium of cannon fire, or chop and preserve the manky mollusk for the expanding New World tapas market. Before making a decision, we had a few more drinks and took turns on me now slightly deformed India. Ah, 'twas a fine birthday. Now, me lad, are you ready to blow out your candles? Forget not to make a wish.